Welcome to This Week with Chris and Bob. It's been a crazy week. Stay tuned, and we were going to unpack some of the things that happened with the FTC this week. If you're a financial institution, an auto dealership, travel agency, mortgage broker, insurance company, these rules apply to you. And
Well, but let's just say if you're not a bank and you handle consumer financial information, it probably applies to you.
yeah,
If you collect it, like you want to make sure talk to your accountant or your attorney, but it probably applies to you.
well, it applies to the accountants too. If they, especially all the
Oh,
ones that
that one too.
all the ones that even get a property um, make income taxes.
Taxes ones especially because they're not exempt from the allegedly they're not exempt from the 5,000 record rule. So 5,000 records is the threshold, but
So, Chris, before you get too deep into
yeah,
that, what is the FTC rule? When did it come about, and where are we right now? Because
it, it actually got passed almost a year ago now, in December of 2021, and it's Graham-Leach-Bliley Act. It's part of GLBA, and they haven't updated the FTC safeguards. It's been a while, so they updated it because they're really worried about the personal financial information of people in general, protecting that information, make sure it doesn't get leaked. Obviously, because we've seen how many breaches we've had with credit bureaus. It's just banks getting hit, other financial entities, and auto dealerships are a target, right? And so are some of these
yep.
mortgage places and whatnot. And they updated the rules. They want you to have a sophisticated security system in place, have a written information security program in place that you're abiding by, and they put a 5,000 record limit in there for small businesses, but the IRS is saying that, and the FTC agreed that that doesn't apply to people doing taxes.
Yeah,
because of the critical nature of the information that you're collecting to do taxes.
yeah. The thing was 5,000 on a transaction oriented basis isn't a whole lot.
Especially for like an auto dealership, because they're going to have a list of people's information from like how many years, or mortgage places, like how many people are going to. Yeah, I mean, 5,000 is really not that much.
And if somebody goes in and starts looking at things, like in New Jersey, they classify an email list as PII. So that adds up really quick, and people really don't understand where they are, which is why the risk assessment that we've been doing goes and looks for PII across the environment.
Yeah, and when he says PII, he means personally identifiable information. So each state has different rules on this. California and New York have the two most strict rules. We desperately need a federal rule that oversees all of it to make sure that people don't have to conduct business in 50 different ways in 50 different states. But that's been hung up in Congress for a while, trying to get people to agree on it. But in Europe, there's GDPR. There's GDPR version 2 coming out. It's really about protecting our privacy, right? So when we trust our information, our private information, especially our social security numbers, with entities, they have to protect it. And believe it or not everybody really cares that much to provide security to make sure that your information is protected. The thing is, you don't know.
Well, last time I bought a car, I'm sitting at the table picking up the car, and the guy's got a sheet of stickers with all my information. He starts using them up. There's obviously more stickers on that card. I don't know what happened to that sheet afterwards.
Yeah, did they properly dispose of it? Did they properly shred it?
Who knows?
Yeah.
And I was kind of nervous then. That was like 4 or 5 years ago on that one. But the FTC guidelines that are out there are really meant for protecting consumers. This isn't a B2B. This isn't focusing on B2B
Nope.
Breaches and compromises and security. This is really going right.
I mean, it could be if you're outsourcing your payroll or something to them and they're collecting personal information. It's kind of a B2B service, but yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? Like if all your employees are in there, it's going to affect the individual employees. But yeah, like to Bob's point, it really is designed for people that are business to consumers. Their primary is their primary business.
But if your business deals with financial information of any type for a consumer, you probably should be checking out the guidelines for what's here, because there's a lot of companies specified in this new ruling that it specifically calls out auto dealerships and anyone that prepares tax returns. But then it goes down to talk about mortgage brokers, and they actually have something called a finder. You don't even have to be part of the transaction, but if you're making a recommendation between somebody that's buying a house and a mortgage broker, even though you don't touch all that information, you're supposedly covered under this. I'm not sure how they're going to enforce that one, but
You know my favorite ones? Payday lenders. The people who really care about security are the payday lenders.
yeah.
Let's be real. You're taking a payday loan. Oh, they're worried about your security, all right. Not to mention the 27% interest rate they're charging you on your money that you're never going to be able to get back. Oh, sorry, sidetracked on that one.
You're right. So you go through. There's all you said. There's a written security plan that needs to be developed. They got to train your staff.
More importantly, you have to name somebody in your company that's responsible for it. Like they don't have to do all the work, but they're responsible for the your company. Which in security, it's really a data owner. I mean, the person that's accountable and responsible for things. There's one person you have to name.
And if they don't name it, it's going to fall. It's going to fall to the business owner who's going to get questioned for it, because it's never the IT guys that are going to end up in jail or paying the fine. It's going to be the business owner, and people have a hard time realizing that. And I was just skimming through it right here, and I see it also says train your staff. One of the things we got going on right now in New Jersey is I'm working with a grant writer right now to get state funds to actually do cybersecurity awareness training for people. So we got a really short deadline on that one, and we got 150 people on the wait list right now for that, and I still have some space on that program to get people into it, but we do have a short deadline because the state makes money available, and then they say, okay, you got to file in 2 weeks to get it.
Well, at least to that point, at least we didn't talk on it. They delayed this 6 months, so they delayed this till June of next year. It was December 9th, but they delayed till next year. So even if they can't get the state funds at the end of this year, maybe they can file for it in the early, for the budget year next year. So hopefully,
But that brings back to your point. They delayed it, but there's a lot of work to do here for some businesses to get to be where they need to be, and that delay is going to help them. They can't go wait until a month before the deadline. Well,
especially people that are doing taxes. Like you're not going to want to get through tax season, get to April, and we all know people file extensions and you're still working for months after that. But like you don't want to get to that point and then have to dump into trying to implement all of this by June. Also, the funny part is the reason they delayed it. And we didn't get into that. They're not delaying it because they're being nice. They're delaying it because the SBA, or the Small Business Administration, wrote a letter to them talking about how the pandemic had caused a supply chain issue for like some hardware, but like really there's a labor shortage. And this is true overall. There's a labor shortage in cybersecurity professionals and that can actually implement this inside of some businesses. And they were specifically worried about small businesses. And the FTC took that to heart, and that's why they issued the 6-month extension.
But it's an extension. It's not going to go away. Like you said,
no.
It's things that need to happen. And, fortunately for both of us, a lot of the security tools we use now are cloud-based, and we're not that dependent on the local network gear to keep people secure. Yeah.
Right.
You've got old hardware and old PCs and stuff that need to be there. But for the most part, a lot of the security tools that we're securing now are all software-based, so we can really protect that environment anywhere.
Right, and I think that's the key. But like traditionally, a lot of people are going to want like a hardware firewall on premise and maybe some other things, and they may not be able to get it. Like if you want to go out and get like network switches, right, to connect to your computers, and you needed to upgrade to managed ones, but say you just bought cheap ones, and you want to upgrade to managed ones, there are some that aren't available for 6 months. Yep. There's some that like are so back ordered that you won't be able to get them, and I think that's what they were kind of looking for to try to get the supply chain back in order.
And if you can find them, you're going to be paying a lot more for them, like the concert tickets
or graphics cards from the last couple of years. Now those are down, but like some people are paying 2.5-3 times what the actual MSRP are, because you get these third-party resellers. They sell it on Amazon or other places. They buy them out and then they just jack the prices up and you have to pay it. So, by the way, normally you don't get warranty because of that, because you're not buying from an authorized retailer. So that creates another problem.
So, Chris, another thing that's in the Safeguards Act, it talks about pen tests or
Yep.
ongoing testing.
Oh, don't get me started with this one.
What's that?
You're going to set me off. I got set off yesterday on pen testing, so we can talk about this.
So real quick,
Yep.
Can a pen test, what is a pen test, and how, is it something that is that really a one and done thing in this, or, this says ongoing monitoring. That is the pen test.
I believe the vulnerability assessments have to be at least twice a year, I believe is what it says. So you have to do one every 6 months. A pen test, I think, was annual. So let's break it down. So vulnerabilities are things in software or hardware that can be exploited to let somebody gain access somebody shouldn't. Let's just call that let's call that a vulnerability. So Microsoft patches a lot of vulnerabilities all the time. Apple does. There's ones for Linux, for your phone, for iOS, for Android, things like that. Switches, firewalls, they all have software, so they all have vulnerabilities. We need to be scanning for those. We need to be applying the patches for the ones that are known. If it's a 0 day, and a 0 day vulnerability is one that just hasn't been published yet or known about that's being exploited, obviously you're not required to patch that when you don't have a patch and nobody knows that exists. But as soon as that patch comes out, that's a responsibility. So when you're doing vulnerability assessments, what we're trying to do is we're trying to look for those vulnerabilities that are still active and patch them, right? We're identify the systems, patch them, fix that. A pen test or a penetration test.
Just to interrupt for a second, people not patching is what caused some of these bigger outbreaks in the past, where it was, basically Microsoft tells people what the patches are fixing.
Yep.
So guys, if you don't patch it, you just left the door open for it's like not locking the lock.
Well, also let's talk beyond patching. If you're running old operating systems that can't be patched anymore, you're running vulnerable software, and that's where a vulnerability assessment would actually identify that too. So if you're still running Windows 7, which you shouldn't be, but if you are, it's not being patched, and it's gonna show up on every vulnerability assessment, and they're gonna ding you for that.
So, Chris, I was working with one CPA client that had 9 years of QuickBooks installed. Every new machine, they wanted all the old versions of QuickBooks installed, so
Why?
they could read the old files and see what was there.
Why don't they just upgrade the files?
Because then it's not the original one, and it's not there. Yeah, I know. That's what I thought too.
Well, that's introducing vulnerabilities, because I forgot what Intuit's like patch program is, but it's not 10 years. It's not
10 years.
It might be 5, maybe 5 years.
And it's not even the Intuit patches that you're worried about, because it's all the dependencies that those machines had. So, just calling, since this really is a CPA, this is finance, and it calls out the tax preparers, keeping those old versions. Oh no, it wasn't it wasn't QuickBooks. It was the tax software.
Was it Drake or something like that? Or either way, it doesn't matter. It's nine versions is insane.
It was all the old versions of that. So even Drake was on that list of things that were being installed. So and not keeping current and keeping that thing is a huge risk.
Or people who bought the Adobe suite like 10 years ago before it went creative, and they want to keep running it, and it's not been patched in 7 years.
Yeah,
it shows up on vuln scans all the time.
So,
from penetration, once you get a vulnerability assessment, the reason they're looking for that, they want to patch them. Then they want you to do a penetration test to see if there's other things that can be exploited, because not all exploits are considered vulnerabilities. It could just be a configuration that you have that's bad. So it might not show up on a vulnerability assessment, but if you do a pen test, somebody's going to come in and they're going to try to find a way to exploit your network. There's a few ways to do it. You can do white box, you can do black box, you can do gray box. I'm not going to explain all those, but if you want somebody to come in blind from the outside and have to hack in through like a firewall or something like that, you can do that. But what they're looking for is they're not necessarily looking for that. They're looking for somebody that you can give them a PC. They can do an assumed compromise pen test where they just see if they can get to maybe administrator, and they can run some sort of exploit, and then we can put things in place to kind of stop that and minimize that risk. And that's what they're looking for in the pen test. But the continuous security monitoring, what to Bob's point, is a little bit more than that too. It's also tied to configurations, and it's tied to Running software and stuff like that, that should be looking at everything. But I believe if you don't do continuous monitoring, you can do the vulnerability assessments and the pen tests as an augment. Now, you might want to do the continuous security monitoring because that might end up being less expensive than doing 2 vulnerability assessments and a pen test in a year, because those could run between the two of those, between doing 2 vuln scans and a pen test. I mean, you could be spending $20, $30, $40, $50,000 plus, depending on the size of your company, to do that in a year, every single year.
Each time.
Yeah. So, well, the vuln scans, let's say vulnerability assessments for your company are $2,500 to $5,000, and you got to do 2 of those. So, double that. So let's say it's 5,000 to 10,000. Then a pen test is probably going to run you 10 to 20. So, depending on how big your company is, it's definitely going to run more if it's a more complex environment. So, it really depends on how you want to handle it to follow those safeguards. But the key is they delayed it 6 months to give people more time, but you should start now. I think that's the thing that we're trying to say is you should start now. If you don't know if you're affected by this, go to the look up FTC safeguards rule and kind of look at it and see if you're affected by it. Like, talk to your counsel, talk to your accountant, see if you're going to be classified as in that, and make sure that you're getting covered. Because if you get caught blind, FTC doesn't care. They're going to fine you, and they can actually, I believe they can do criminal charges as well.
Oh,
so it's civil and criminal. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so we went a little long today.
Yeah, it's an important topic, though.
It is an important topic, and I think that we probably need to unpack the pen test pieces a little deeper. But
probably show some examples
today, because I know you can keep going for an hour on the pen test. So
I'll just start ranting. It's fine.
So, guys, we're really here to offer assistance and and help you get a plan together to satisfy the FTC guidelines. This really is something that's going to be affecting a lot of businesses, and some businesses, like I said, might not even know. So if you reach out to us, we can definitely help you get started and look at this. I know Chris and I were working on a sheet that goes over, that condenses some of it, but the reg itself is pretty small to skim through.
Yeah, just make sure that you're not affected by it if you're worried. And honestly, even if you're not affected by it, the requirements are really good for any business.
And don't get hung up on the 5,000 record limit, because it's really easy to hit that limit, no matter what business you're in.
Yeah, and it's on you to prove that you don't. Remember that. It's not on the FTC to prove that you do have it. It's on you to prove. It's like the IRS. It's on you to prove that you don't. So keep that in mind. All right.
So we got Thanksgiving next week. So not sure what they were going to hit, and holidays.
Maybe we'll do it early, because comment down below. Are you actually going to watch this if we do it on Black Friday? No, seriously, let us know. I really want to know if you'll actually watch it if we do this on Black Friday. If not, we'll do it on Wednesday instead.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week, and let's stay safe.